Hello, you guys, and welcome back to Kind of Hot, Kind of Healthy. If you are new here because you are tuning in for our guest, hello, and welcome to our hot space over here on the internet.
The hottest.
The hottest space over here on the internet. My name is Allie. I am a nutrition and fitness coach, and I work with women who are ready to take the overwhelm out of health and fitness, right? Like, that's not the vibe. It's 2025, right? We're in February of 2025. Think about your goals, right? We have a lot of episodes where we talked about New Year's goals and that sort of stuff. So if you like today's episode, which I know you will, go back and listen to January. January was a month of goal setting, how to set those, how to achieve those goals, who you need to be. Maddie and I had a lot of fun with that. Like January was good episodes.
Oh my God, it was. And if you don't know this, we typically are recording in advance. So right now it's January 3rd
Yeah,
when we are recording this, but we are going to be doing like monthly updates on how our goals are doing. And we'll try to make those a little more like this is the end of the actual.
topical.
Yeah, more topical. But we cover health, we cover pop culture, and we just make it more fun because a lot of the podcasts around health are like two dudes talking and just like kind of like shaming you into
Hmm.
changing your health, making better decisions. And we like to bring the fun side of it, but empower women to
Yep.
make how to make better choices. And we give a lot of step-by-step instructions. Like one of my favorite episodes recently was about injuries in the gym and who to see when you get injured because I've been working through my own injuries from previous injuries in the past. So we really like to give like concrete steps of do this, do that, here's where to go, and empower you with those tools. But I am Maddie Martinez. I'm a women's health and fitness coach, and I get women lean and strong. So women that are taking, HIIT classes, Orange Theory, starting to lift, but like don't know what to do. I take you from sweaty workouts to workouts that are efficient and you're getting consistent and nutrition that actually gets you stronger, not just tells you to eat less and cut all of your calories. So that is what I do, get women lean and strong. But what was I going to say? Oh, I had a thought in my mind because I always like when I listen to podcasts myself, I always like whenever at the beginning they always say, we talked about this last couple weeks ago, what we're going to cover. So we just want to give you
Mm.
guys a quick intro to who we are and why you need to keep listening. And we also have a really good guest interview. We do one a month and they always come out on the second Wednesday because we have weekly episodes. And today we're interviewing, so that weird. Patsy. I literally forgot to look how to pronounce her last name. Patsy, I think, just Paci. And she's also a woman's health coach, and she deals a lot with hormones. She actually went into early menopause surgically. So we're talking a lot about menopause, perimenopause, HRT, estrogen patches, things that all women we're going to be going through. And there's a lot of taboo about that. So I'm really excited to talk about that today.
I'm really excited as well. I used to work with one of my clients who I still connect with a lot, and she went through menopause really early,
Mm,
and it
like how early?
was um, early 40s.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Um, and I don't know, to put into comparison, my mom hasn't gone through menopause yet, and she's almost 60.
Mm.
So
Same. My
it's
mom is in her late 50s and it's like just starting to happen, but like not through it.
right. So 40s, I mean, some women are still having children at 40. So
Good point.
it's, like it was crazy and just so intense, and how debilitating it was. So if you're listening to this and you're in some similar sort of situation, I'm really excited to talk to our guest Mere today to just hear her insight, how she kind of, not to sound dramatic, but survived this all, how she came out on
Mhm.
the other side of it. Because women go through a lot of changes in their lives hormonally, And there is not nearly enough of like support and conversation because, again, it can be thought as like taboo or like no one
Mhm.
wants to hear it. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, I want to hear it. Like, again, two dudes on a podcast don't want to hear it from you. Don't give a fuck what your opinion
Nope.
is. Sorry, not sorry. I want to hear from women who are experiencing these things. And that's what we really like to do is like bring guests on that you can relate to, you can learn from. It's a
Mhm.
space where you don't feel that judgment of maybe not knowing things. Like, this is a space, again, like Maddie said, to empower you, to have you walk away learning things, feeling more confident, and also having fun with it. Because
Mhm.
we're not going to sit here for like an hour and just like bring out our bro science and just bore the shit out of you. Like that's not our vibe. And we're
No,
also
you don't.
more
Oh,
fun
sorry.
on YouTube. We're more fun on YouTube.
Yes.
Go to YouTube. If you're listening to this, I'm going to put YouTube link in the show notes. And it's just more fun because you get to see us, you get to see our guests. We're funny, we're silly.
We're hot. Maddie is dressing. I feel like I look very put together. I've worn this literally once for a photo shoot that why is this crooked? For a photo shoot. It's from TJ Maxx. See?
I'm gagged. She puts on a sweater and some jewelry and she goes, "I look very professional."
Not professional, put together. I
You
feel
feel good. You feel
yes,
good. That was just
yes.
like so funny. I'm dead. It's like when you comb your hair, you put on like your little like CC cream and you're like, wow, like I really am put together.
I don't use CC cream. What's the difference?
Um, what's the other one?
I don't
BB
know.
cream?
I don't use
It's
BB,
just like kind of
CC,
like a tinted moisturizer. It has
really.
sunscreen in it. Sometimes I think it has like a little foundation.
Mm, mm.
I think it's CC is like color correction. I think yeah,
Ah.
but it's just like an if you're not super into makeup and doing like a full beat, then you would wear that. If I'm doing my makeup, I'm putting my phone on do not disturb. Sorry, I got a message. If I'm doing my makeup, it will be a full beat. Like I either
Mm,
don't do my makeup or I do my makeup just because I'm like
mm,
I do gaff about just like putting on like or I'll like my not makeup is like eyebrows, sunscreen with a tint in it,
mhm,
maybe mascara, a little gloss. That's my
mhm,
non-makeup. But if I'm doing my makeup, like I can't just like not do concealer, not do foundation. Like I'm not a bitch that does that. Like it has to be done or I'm like your face looks off.
mm. So that's
My
why it looks like
face,
that
not
today.
your face.
Kidding.
Yeah, it's just like also like it's an experience. Like it's an
Mhm,
experience to just like be a girl doing her makeup, just like in the
mhm,
bathroom playing your tunes,
mhm.
listening to your podcast, this one. Um
Love this. It's like I do one of 2 things.
Yeah.
Either I'm wearing tinted sunscreen, which mine is Sun Bum, the tinted one.
Mm.
I actually didn't put any sunscreen in my neck, I feel kinda bare. But I wear sunscreen every single day, no matter rain, shine, snow, hail. Every day. It's that, and if I don't put sunscreen on, it's because, like, I just was super lazy that day, or my makeup is sunscreen, a little bit of concealer, mascara, blush, and that's it. Those 4
Love
things.
blush. Yeah.
I do. I've been doing you probably can't even tell, but been doing better, and I need, chapstick, but it's downstairs, like
Always got to have it locked and loaded. I have like three chapsticks in this thing. I have a lip mask on right now because my lips are dry.
ooh,
It's somewhere on me always because if I don't have like a lip on, I will like
mhm,
bite my lips and just kind of like,
mm.
not to be disgusting, gross. I like will peel the skin. Like if they're really dry,
Oh, yeah, I've done that. I
you know what
mean,
I
like
mean? So like they
yeah,
have to be hyper moisturized.
yeah.
Also, Mare's in the waiting room. Mare, sorry, I just assumed I could call
I
her
know, I
Mare.
called her Mare 'cause her Instagram. Oh,
We'll
one
have
other
to,
thing real quick.
yeah.
I sent you this on TikTok. What about I was so what I don't know what my brain is not working.
Do you
It's
have
great to
coffee?
start an interview. No, I drank enough. Makeup classes. I think I wanna take a
Yes.
couple makeup classes. Thoughts? Feelings?
Yes. Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Okay, we'll be continued on that. What
Yeah,
ready
this
for
is
more
a
information?
continued conversation. We're going to get into the interview. If you guys want more of like this sort of conversation, this is the podcast for you. We
Mhm,
love to show our real lives. We love to talk about our health and fitness like personally. We love to share what's going to help you, what helps our clients, but we also like to have a space to connect with other
Mhm.
women. And like, so if you are somebody that works from home, you're like, I am missing that girlfriend type of connection, this is the podcast for you.
You have found it. You are home.
You are home. All right, we are going to jump into the interview now.
So, welcome, Mayor. We are super excited to talk to you. I'm trying to remember who told me to message you. I can't remember who it was, but someone was like, "Oh, you should talk to her." I probably told you in the DMs a while ago. But Mary, you're a functional health coach specifically for women, or do you work with men too?
I do work with men. I work with a lot of couples. So I typically might start working with someone's, I guess, the wife or the girlfriend and then get referred.
Oh,
That's
nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, give us a little bit of background story on who you are, how you got to coaching, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So my clinical experience is I actually have my degree in dental hygiene and health science. So I do have a clinical background as far as being a dental hygienist. That's actually something I just recently officially retired for. That license was on hold the last couple years, actually last 4 years. And I was finally like, you know what? Like, why am I even holding on to this? So that's done with, which was a huge move in my life. Anyone who has ever had a clinical background and worked very hard to get that license, it's really
Mhm.
hard to just kind of finally send that email and be like, no. But yeah, so that was my clinical experience as far as like my education coming up. And while a hygienist, I was always very into, I guess, training. My background is actually as a professional dancer, so that's where kind of that transition as far as health and the body came from. And I am a female. And so I started to have, I guess, as most females do, just changes in life. And through those experiences led me to furthering my education and kind of going down my own rabbit holes with regards to my health journey. I officially went all in, I guess, as most coaches will say, as far as not a part-time gig, full-time 4 years ago. So it was my full-time role as a health coach. I did work under Jason Theobald of Scooby Health for several years. And most recently, in the last year, I've co-founded Fortify Health Coaching with Sarah Ford Bishop. So she is my partner in crime. And we were actually just talking, we had our official 1 year anniversary under Fortify Health Coaching. And it has just been, it's like, you look back in a year and like in a positive way, you look back in a year and
Yeah.
you're like, are you sure it's just been 365 days? Because holy
Yep.
shit.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's good. So here we are, just kind of paving the way forward for other coaches through mentorship. We do work with one-on-one clients as well, but our big thing, regardless with one-on-one clients or with other coaches, is changing the narrative, changing our clients' narrative, changing coaching narrative, and just empowering everybody with your education.
I love that. We're big here on, and I mean as coaches as well, but we always say on the podcast, we're very big on empowering women, and that's why we like to have guests like yourself on to help the women understand a little bit more about themselves, their hormones, their body in a way that feels approachable. So we are super excited to dive in and learn more about you. And like, congratulations on that 1 year mark. That is always exciting. Anytime I can like celebrate another business owner, it just makes me feel like the warm and fuzzies because we all understand like a year is that like so much shit goes down in the year. And when you look back, you're like, wow, I did all that. I survived that. I made that happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been incredibly rewarding. It's been literally gas pedal down, and we actually just had a planning meeting for 2025, and it's just really reflective. I think just take, I guess, a squirrel moment as business owners. I know that you guys can totally relate,
Mhm.
and as females, when you just make these big pivots within your life. Like I said, like I've gone from, a career and being a professional dancer that led me into, something more obviously stable with regards to hygiene. And then that just kind of, everything just kind of evolved. And it's like, holy
Hmm.
shit, like this is so amazing. And that's what, gains us the experiences. So then we have these bigger steps when we go into like actually creating our own thing, like our own little baby. It's huge. Like it's huge. So thank you for that. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I could go down a wormhole of like talking about, not that I know a ton about dental hygiene, but like asking questions about that in dancing. But maybe
Yeah.
we'll do like a part two.
Right,
We
exactly,
want to
exactly.
give, we want to give the audience as much value as we can. So I want to get started. I need to remember who the crap told me to talk to you, but when they told me to message you, because you had went through early menopause surgically, and I was like, oh, that is super interesting. I haven't talked to anyone who's gone through that. I've heard of that, but can you tell us a little bit more of like why that happened, what kind of went on, and like how you got to the other side, and like not to objectify you by any means, but your body is like banging. So like for
Oh,
women who go through menopause, they're like, I can't get to a point where I love my body. And obviously you are there, I would think. So I'm just curious on like how that all happened.
yeah, well, I'll say the whole loving our physique, our external physique. I think as females, we all can understand that that is a day-to-day thing, and it's something that I
Mm,
think we have to work on. And I can just with that truthfully say that I have never felt more confident within the skin that I have
Mhm.
than probably in the last couple of years. But it has obviously been a journey. And well, I mean, let's just be very clear. Does that mean that every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, girl, killing it? Absolutely fucking not. Like that, that is a lie, right? But I think that one other thing I'll say on that, and then I'll go back to, what we're here for. The other kind of thing is also like just appreciating how much my body has been through and how much
mm,
patience, that I've had to have to get to this point, and also get excited about how much more, that I know that it's capable of. I think
Mhm.
that's a really cool place to be, is to appreciate your past, but still yearn for that future.
mm.
So that little kind of thing. But to get to your main question, number one, I just want to say I love already talking to you guys. This is
Oh, good.
That's awesome.
so we're gonna have to stay on topic because this is
It's totally okay. Like we're all for side tangents, side quests, totally fine.
cool. Well, good. Uh, so as far as surgical menopause, yes, I was induced in surgical menopause. I'm gonna say 2020 was a hell of a year for this world.
Mhm.
Most people were, and I don't know if we're still getting flagged on podcasts. We had a podcast and it was getting flagged if we ever said, the word, as far
Hmm.
as the pandemic that was going around in 2020. But 2020, I was induced into a surgical menopause. What led to that ultimately was ovarian torsions. And this really shapes my role. It really shapes my future, my message. I started having ovarian torsions probably in I'm gonna say my mid to late 20s. I was having ovarian torsions for well over like a decade. So well
And what
over.
is that exactly?
So ovarian torsion essentially is where the ovary essentially twists on itself without getting
Hmm.
too in depth in it. So literally the ovary takes the ligament, there's a ligament that attaches, and the ovary quite literally flips around on itself.
Oh.
Um, Most torsions are considered a partial torsion, meaning that the blood supply is not completely cut off to the organ, ovary. And many torsions are self-resolving, meaning that it will untwist on its own.
Mhm.
However, in a full torsion, so an absolute, let's just think 360, most times, I'm not going to say all because again, they can self-correct. Those are surgical interventions, and a cutting off blood supply is very possible. So I started having what I feel they're very hard to diagnose unless it's a full blood supply cutoff. Um, I feel like I started having partial torsions where my ovary would partially twist, and probably in my mid to late 20s. And I had my first complete ovarian torsion probably around that same time. The ovarian torsions, what they felt like is, I've heard they're worse than childbirth, but I've never obviously been through that. But essentially, I'd be walking in a store and the pain would absolutely put me to my knees. So it was a medical emergency. I would have to basically be dropped to my knees and just have to wait it out. The beautiful thing with women is man, we can really normalize things and we can really talk ourselves into, as we all know, with cramps and pain, there's a waxing and a waning. So it's almost like it's like you feel it getting intense, but then you know mentally, you can talk yourself into it's going to be better. Like it's going to
Mm-hmm.
resolve. We three know that. Any female listening to this podcast has absolutely been there in the worst period pain ever, that you can talk yourself through
Mhm.
anything. And then guess what? Once it stops, you're good. You just want to keep on going with your life. You're not like, oh, this is a severe thing. And so that's how the torsions began. It was just major pain. I would go see my physician, but at that point, like they're like, hey, there's some fluid, maybe you had a cyst rupture. They didn't really know, and I did have some cyst rupture along the way, but my first ovarian torsion, a complete torsion, was actually a double torsion, and it did not show up on an ultrasound. I had been probably going in and out of the ER like probably like once almost every other month, because the pain was so debilitating. The pain would get to the point where I would keep telling my husband, like, no, it's getting better now. And then you wait to it happen again. Like, oh, no, 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 no. It's just, it's kind of like, it's like a Charlie horse almost. It's
Mhm.
to a big extreme. And you kind of talk yourself out of that. But ultimately, we would end up needing to call EMS and I would end up in the emergency room.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
they would do ultrasounds. And as I explained earlier, a complete torsion, you should see blood supply completely cut off. However, not one of my ovarian torsions, not a single, not a double, not even my final ovarian torsion was a triple. None of those showed up on ultrasound. I was
Oh my
really
goodness.
blessed to go into the ER so many times that the staff of the gynae crew, were familiar with me. Also, my gynecologist was on staff there at the hospital that I was going to. And so they made a call my very first time as far as really believing that was an ovarian torsion. And they said, um, we need to put you in surgery. Like we think that there's an ovarian torsion. It's not showing up. We must go in. You need to sign off that potentially you could lose your ovary. Like
Mhm.
all this, like, what is your birthing plan? What is your, fertility plan? And like being doped up on drugs after like 12 hours. I looked at my husband, I'm like, what is our plan? Like, are we wanting children? Like, it was really crazy. So long story short, they did put me in surgery, and I did have a double torsion. And so at that time, they untwisted it, sent me on my way with a plan to come back, and then we had to have a discussion. And shortly thereafter, I did lose my first ovary. Fast forward about 10 years and going through that entire experience. I had one ovary left, and about a year after I lost my first ovary, I had my other ovary, which had never given me any problems. I recognized exactly what was happening, and I was having a torsion. And we went back into the emergency room. They put me on surgery immediately this time, immediately meaning like 10 hours later. And it was actually a triple torsion. So my final
Oh,
remaining ovary did decide that this was going to be the path that was going to happen. And so we had to make an executive decision. Was I going to go another 5 years, 10 years doing
mhm.
this dance, this song and dance? And after surgery, basically my gynecologist said, we need to have a serious talk about what do you want to happen? And we ultimately had no decision. The decision was that ovary needed to come out. Otherwise, I was going to be looking at being in the ER again for years on end. And so
Mhm.
2020, start of the vid, my first surgery was, or I had my triple torsion, and they put me on an emergency list. And as soon as an ER was ready, then they put me into surgery and removed my final ovary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why that was happening?
That's a really good question. Anatomical, they really can't tell you as far as like what was the reason.
Mhm.
For me, they looked at my anatomy. What did I have like crazy long, fallopian tubes, or it was my ligaments. Like there was nothing really anatomical present, but something that I described to somebody once was two possibilities here is once an ovarian torsion happens, think about like a straw, okay? And once you twist a straw and then untwist it, not really the same. And
Hmm.
you keep that happening, not really the same. So could the repetitions or just having the one, could that have contributed? Absolutely. Could there have been other things at play? Like, I'm gonna probably go a little bit on a tangent that may not be comfortable for some people, but I think it's worth noting. About 6 months prior to my final torsion, the triple torsion, I actually lost my mom. So
Mhm.
could we go into, my nervous system, even with
Hmm.
regards to the original torsions? Could we start talking about that? I did have ovarian cysts. So I did have cysts on my ovaries. Were they incredibly large, to where my physician thought that that could be the cause? At the start, they weren't. That was one of my first surgeries, actually, was having my ovarian cysts removed. Unfortunately, they did grow back. And so if we started thinking about my physiology and just the fact that I was prone to these cysts, I was prone to this regrowth. Like, what is that really saying with regards to my body, with regards to perhaps inflammation underlying in my body? And then we put all the things with dieting, we put all the things with not having a regular menstrual cycle, and like all these like drops in stress buckets that could have downstream effects to my hormone production, to how
Mhm.
your systems are talking with each other. Like, you could really create quite a timeline, of things that, I mean, man, we'd probably need like a massive podcast to really start with that.
Mhm.
But I think that like that's really important, to go back in your timeline and say, hey, like not so much was what was the thing, what was the one
Hmm.
thing that caused this, but shit, like what could be all the things that really stacked these cards up? Um, and then going once I was in a surgical menopause, like that card deck doesn't stop. It's just a new
Mhm.
chapter with a whole nother domino effect, right? Um,
Mhm.
so it's quite the story, but that's essentially what led me to where I was at with regards to no real decision other than to dive into the unknown. And
Hmm.
one thing that I was told, and it was interesting, and I think that this is why I am so like empathetic, but also just very driven with females' health, is one, like the lead up of all those years of, I mean, let's be real, like I can't even say the word normalize because who the fuck normalizes going into the ER as many times as I did? Like, that's just
Yeah.
despicable. Like, I just didn't want to deal with it. Like, and I'm gonna call, spade a spade there. I just didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to go back. I couldn't wait to get back in the gym again. I couldn't wait to get back to my normal life. And
Mhm.
the thing was, is I could, right? So it wasn't,
Right.
it was debilitating to me. It was, I could have my surgery. And I knew how to deal with my post-op. I knew how to get right back into the gym. And nobody really was having those discussions with me. I mean, fuck, no one discussed with me that not having a period for like the first, I don't know, like 10 years when I first started having a menstrual cycle. They didn't talk to me that not having a regular period could impact me. So when
Yeah.
this discussion was having about me going into, menopause, which was a very short discussion, right? Um, it was very simple, like, oh, we're just gonna remove your ovaries. And I remember having discussion, or your ovary, I remember having a discussion with somebody and they were like, I would just have it all taken out, like, my uterus and everything. And like, hold the fucking boat. Like, that's like, right, I might not have my ovaries, but do I need to have that taken out? And you do realize that takes up space with regards to my pelvic floor, and that's going to affect other things. Like, I think
Mhm.
we're all so quick to like get the quick answer, the answer that we
Yep.
think that we can just move on with our life. And I get it, but that also may not just be serving either. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I want to just say thank you for being like so vulnerable and sharing your experience because again, like this, it really is not a normal thing to experience. And so having just this space for people to hear your story and then to just hear how you weren't looking for that quick solution, right? Like, and especially like in this day and age, like people, women are more open to exploring the whole picture. But 5, 10 years ago, like it was just kind of like quick, 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 quick. Like I remember being put on birth control because my period was like irregular, and my mom didn't really know better. My doctor should have known better, but she was just like, try this. And it's just it's hard it's hard being a woman sometimes because you really really have to advocate for yourself, even if your doctor's a woman. Sometimes there's just this wall up, and so
Mhm.
I really appreciate that when you were, when Maddie asked like what do you think caused this, there's you were looking at a much bigger list than just like, it just happens sometimes.
Yeah. It's really interesting how, you brought up a good point as far as like us as women and the access to education has truly changed. Not just the access, but the willingness to be open to
Yeah.
education has changed and talking about it. Like, and I
Mhm.
think that's really important too for us to bring up that our experiences and our willingness are truly shaped by how we're who raised us, who was in, and that's not
Mhm.
just our our parents. This is our community, whether it was a small community, a large community, a community that had access to a lot of medical care versus a community that didn't. That really shapes our views, our opinions on, and our ability to want to seek out more answers. I think that, for my mom, talking about menopause and perimenopause, talking about sex. Like that was not like we did not have that conversation other than don't do it.
Mhm.
I was raised in South Carolina and very much Bible Belt, and so you didn't talk about those things. Nice girls didn't paint their nails. Nice girls, those types of
Yeah.
dialogue. What I'm realizing now is those weren't necessarily wrong in those moments. It's what they knew. And we can say it's wrong now because we know more now. But in
Yep.
that moment, it's like this moment now, we only know what we know, but at least I think there's more willingness
Mhm.
and openness to ask questions and understand that a conversation is not a confrontation. I think those
Mhm.
things have really changed for us for the good, long as you're able to weed through a lot of the information we're bombarded with.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
It's funny because my mom, we were just talking about she used to get her nails done like the old school way, like the big, hard, ones for like 20 years. I
Yeah.
mean, just, for people that are into like I don't know if we talk about this, but I had a whole autoimmune journey process where, you end up learning and you just every day I feel like I'm learning something new. I'm like, oh, that could affect this, or like stacking the cards. And I'm forgetting what Dr. G Gonzalez, he was like a cancer doctor, but he did a podcast about nail polish and how it, can go right into your nail bed and your bloodstream. And I was talking to my mom about it, and she's like, we just didn't know. We didn't know any of those things. And even, back to the openness of talking to like our parents about things, like my mom the other day, I use a period cup and I cleaned it and I boiled it. And then she was like, and I had it like sitting on the counter, like drying on a towel. She's like, your thing's right there. And I'm like, Mom, it's a period cup. Like it's just there's still such of like a barrier of like comfortability and talking
Yeah.
about this. I'm like, you're like 50 something years old. Like,
Yeah.
like I just can't
It is
imagine.
interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and I am child free. I don't want kids, but like, in a world where I did, like, I would want those things to be open because we just
Yeah.
want to be able to create more dialogue. And even thinking when I got my, I had the copper IUD, and when I got it taken out to work on my autoimmune, my gynecologist was like, "Well, this doesn't cause any inflammation. This doesn't cause any issues. Like, are you sure you want to get this out?" And it actually was embedded in like the wall or something like that, and
Mm.
the whole process getting it out, very painful. And when she took it out, it was like all like janky and like not
Ah!
the way it should be. And she's like, "Oh, this may have been causing some problems. So what birth control are you going on now?" Like as soon as she took
Yeah.
it out, and I was like, "I'm never coming back."
Yeah. I think that like that's where, that's where for myself, like in dealing with and working with clients and especially working with other coaches, I I know Sarah and I believe we have a little bit of a different approach because we truthfully in like our heart of hearts want to believe that, any provider or anybody that has committed their life to service that they do so with a good heart. They don't do so to do harm. And this is where I do believe that a lot of providers, they know what they know because they know what they've learned. And this is like that same thing, with regards to us as females, we were shaped by the dialogues of our friends, or shaped by the dialogue of public school versus private school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's like, I think that with providers, I do try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but something that I try to convey and Sarah tries to convey to our clients is they're allowed their beliefs. They know what they know what they believe. I think where I have a bit more of a friction point is if they're not open to learning new things. That's obviously concerning. And when we start to speak in finites, in
Mm-hmm.
this or that, without possibility of anything else, I think that
Mhm.
that's really limiting, not only to you as a human being, but to the person that you're speaking to. And that's where I see things go really wrong with provider conversations. And then the other thing that's not just providers, but just I think it's for us as people is saying if I don't know. I was actually really lucky with regards to say that loosely, lucky, with regards to my hormone journey. So when I went into menopause, um, I had, because I knew what I know, I was very blessed. Most women do not. And so I was on, I would say, like a bit of a frantic mission in order to get my body the support that it needed because I understood the risk factors with being induced into a surgical menopause. This is not a natural menopause. This is not my body going into this, natural senescence with regards to, slowing things down. And that in itself, obviously, inflammaging is a word and it is a thing, but I was literally going to wake up and my body was going to be like, the fuck is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was really lucky. I say that loosely, the fact I understood these things because it allowed me to seek out different thoughts, different opinions. I'm trying to get the care that I wanted and I felt that I needed. Um, but where I was going with this is my gynecologist, when I had talked to him as far as like, what do I need? Like, what's going to change? And I will be honest and direct that his discussion with me with regards to what's changing and what's going to change into my body was incredibly short. It was, you'll be fine. You won't have your period anymore. Um, Obviously, that's not even half the story. But where I was
Mhm.
going with this is I discussed with him hormone therapy, and it was something that I wanted and I knew that I needed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very honest with me that that was not his skill set. And he was very honest with me that he does his model of healthcare is to put any of his women on birth control. That was their hormone therapy. Now, obviously, we'll table that discussion as far as the difference there. There is a difference, it is not the same. And so he was very honest with me. He said, I do not do hormone therapy, I just put women on birth control. However, these people at this clinic, they work through a compounding pharmacy. They do work with, hormone therapy. I respected him so much
Mm-hmm.
already because he was the one that understood as far as my ovarian torsions. I was the only client in his entire practice that had ever had that degree of torsions and doubles to triples. Like I just kept upping the ante. Um, but he was, after all this history and being somebody that, residents looked up to, he was very okay with his comfort and limitations of education and said to me, "Hey, you know what? If that's something you're interested in, awesome." He didn't demonize it. He didn't mock me. He just simply said, "It's not something that I do. However, seek out these people. They can help you." And I really respected him even more, and I find that's very, very rare.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is, that's and especially just, I don't know, just looking from like a perspective as a woman, like not every male physician that you run into or a man in like a high powered career is going to be okay to say the I don't know or that's out of my range, but here's some really great options. I think that's an incredible experience for you. Um, because I mean it could have gone a different way. Maybe that put a really bad taste in your mouth, but you had someone who was willing to listen and had provided resources. And again, you knew that these were options because you did have this educational background, which I think is it really shapes like your story. So that is really awesome because I'm sure there are people listening to this that have been maybe afraid to ask their physician for something because they're like, "Oh, I don't know, like are they just going to shoot me down or are they going to be supportive?" And so I love to see like this supportive energy. That's really, really important.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, that's what really drives Sarah and I with Fortify.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we educate our clients to what is available, what, is possible for them. And then it's up to them to have a choice. But I do
Yeah.
believe that women should have a choice, regardless if, the choice and their choices can change.
Yeah.
You can have a belief now, and your belief, again, what I will continue to reiterate, your comfort level that is shaped on your history, that is shaped from all your experiences. And maybe right now, this is your comfort level to which that's allowed to change, it's allowed to grow. And I think as coaches, something that we continue to reiterate to other coaches in this space is there is nothing more empowering than telling your client, you know what? That's beyond my expertise. I do not know, but let me help find the answers for you. Like, I think
Mhm.
that a lot of people are afraid to do that. Everybody wants to be an expert in everything. And I
Mhm.
think that sometimes that can be one, a disservice because I think that, you can come across that you know more than you do. And I know that for myself with, even my mentees, I'm like, hey, you know what? Like that I haven't had experience with that yet. I'm familiar with that, but let's look into it. Let's look into it together. Or, hey, do you know who you should probably listen to? Or here's a book that, I read like years ago. This is where I'm familiar with it. Again, like I just don't use that in my practice very often. So kind of like out of sight, out of mind. Like it's like, changing a car tire. Did I learn how to do that? Yeah. When is the last time I've ever done that? Well, let's just say I would not be doing that right now.
No, I think
I love
that's a good philosophy to have because like you said, I mean, sometimes I talk to my potential new clients and they're like, oh, I worked with this person and they said they were an expert in this, right? And they clearly were not. They've just, we always say, like on here, just because you've lost weight does not make you a coach, right? There's two very different things. And I've done multiple different mentorships where I'm learning about more functional things, learning about more hormones. And I think a good philosophy, I guess, to have is like the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know shit. Like I have a ways to go with more things to learn and from people who know way more than me and knowing the most in the room is probably not the best room to be in, like with anything, I think. Um,
Referring is not a bad thing.
say it again.
I said referring out is not a bad thing.
Oh yeah, I
it.
love to refer out. I mean, this person
Hmm.
knows so much about that. Especially, and I like that you brought in I was just thinking about this from earlier about like nervous system things. And I think that's such a good I think it's becoming so much more prevalent now. Like I think everyone's in their healing era. Everyone and their mom is. Well, they wish their mom was. Put it that way. But that I just wanted to talk about that really quick because I believe a big part of my healing journey was getting into somatic therapy and starting to work on that and unraveling that like huge knot I had in my body, which is still probably there, just unraveling it. But I think if the medical world could get on board and start to, realize that with a lot of their patients, like a lot of the things that women go through with periods, with menstrual cycle, with all these things, with weight gain, all that has so much tied to our nervous system. It's just for them, it's just, oh, take Ozempic and it's going to fix all those things, right? That's such a band aid right now. When in reality, I
Yeah.
think it's a lot of our nervous system that people aren't ready or willing or wanting to dive into yet.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that last part. That's not sexy.
Mhm.
Um, it's not sexy, it's not fun, and it's not quick, it's long
Mhm.
term, and it's not date oriented. It is an ongoing effort. And
Mhm.
I think that even, for example, like, at the beginning of the podcast, when you made such an amazing compliment, by the way, with regards to my physique, I think that's where a lot of people really miss the boat, is they're not willing to do that long sustained work, whether it's with like somatic therapy, whether it's, speaking to a psychologist. That's it's not a 1 + 1 = 2 scenario. It's
Mhm.
not a I eat less and this happens. It's not I go to bed
Mhm.
early and I feel better. Um, it is a long-term thing. And I think that most people are not comfortable looking within to find
Mhm.
the solutions, because they likely are going to have to, I'm not going to say realize that they are the problem, because I
I
don't,
was gonna say take ownership.
yeah, I think it's more so taking ownership and taking responsibility in an exciting way, as opposed to a self-destructive way. And I think
Mhm.
that we as a society of extremes have a really hard time looking internally in a positive light to improve. Like, it's a simple comparison could be a client who goes to the gym and you offer some correction, and you say, or some feedback, and instead they look at it as they failed because you provided them feedback, and you're like,
Mhm.
actually, no, it's because I see your potential, and I want to
Mhm.
help you see the potential and see all the ways you can grow. Um,
Mhm.
those are things that we don't want to address. But going back to like females and hormones, like our brain is that central mechanism, right? That our brain, everything comes back to the brain. And when we talk about, unresolved traumas, when it comes down to our nervous system, our immune system, that brain is affected, and it's going to have that signal that's going to be signaling to our ovaries. It's going to be affecting our blood sugar. It's going to be affecting our adrenals, our thyroid, and round and round and round and round. And even with just regards to, hormone production and going into perimenopause and the extreme fluctuations during that time, that again is going to be a stress on that nervous system. And so you put that on
Mhm.
top of with, shit, I gotta, prep for 12 people coming for Christmas. I gotta find Christmas presents for everyone. And then we're doing the elephant gift exchange, and I forgot about that. And then holy shit, I gotta, like, that is a lot. And
Mhm.
we don't think about those things, because again, about like the normalizing. And again, do we want to avoid those things? No, we need to build resilience to that, but we also cannot continue to run into a wall and wonder what the problem is.
Mhm.
Mm. I could go in so many tangents with this, but I'm gonna hold back.
I feel like we're gonna need like levels to this podcast.
Yeah. This is like
Y'all
part
are
one,
just
part
too
two,
easy
part
to
three, part
talk
four,
to.
part five. Yeah.
Yeah, y'all are just too easy to talk to.
Oh, good. I'm glad. We strive for that. Allie, did you wanna say something? 'Cause I was gonna ask about some
No, I think
HRT.
let's bring it to a question, because again, we
Keep
could
going.
go a million ways with this, and that is, I think that's our toxic
Kryptonite?
trait, is we are
Mhm.
like, we hear something come up and we're like, yep, yeah, I got, and we're like squirrel brain. But we had really good questions, so let's dive into another one.
So I wanted to ask about hormone replacement therapy, estrogen. My mom had just started estrogen patches and she was terrified. So I don't know much about it. So tell me about that. Why is it taboo? Let's kind of go into that.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of the fear around hormone therapy, and just so you know, there's a lot of different language out there right now with regards
Mhm.
to hormone therapy, hormone replacement therapy, menopause, hormone. Like, there's just a lot of different lingo out there. But we're just
Mhm.
gonna, for simplicity's sake, we're gonna call it hormone replacement therapy. So there's been a lot of fear, and the fear is like over decades old because of a study. The study by the WHI. And the study was unfortunately overblown as far as the results, thanks to media. And God knows what would have happened if we had had social media at that time.
Oh, God.
But it was overblown, essentially stating, just to get to the point, that estrogen causes breast cancer. Since then, that statement and many statements by that singular study have been recanted. And debunked. And in fact, the many of the writers from that study came back and said, quote, it was overblown. So unfortunately, because of that time and because of that study, so many women were, thinking their doctors were trying to kill them. Everyone was coming off of hormone therapy. It was really unfortunate. And so that's essentially where largely a lot of the fear came from. And so just to kind of put things into perspective, you also have to understand all the physicians that were going through medical school during that time and since then. So these physicians are now having to unlearn that, but this was years, like decades of being told that 1 + 1 = 2. Like if you had a woman, you put her on estrogen or hormone therapy, she was going to get breast cancer. Her risk for breast cancer went through the roof.
Mhm.
Um, that is scary. Cancer is scary. There's no two ways about it. It is effing scary, and rightly so. But that's where the fear came from. And so I would say that your mom probably came from that generation and not being educated as far as what our hormones do is also part of that generational that experience because women weren't talking about we didn't have social media, they weren't talking about all the benefits of hormone therapy or hormones. They weren't talking about your menstrual cycles at all, these were basically hormones. They were talking about it with regards to sexual health, and essentially a woman who was going into perimenopause or menopause was going to be this shriveled up old hag, right? Like that
Mhm.
was literally the story that was being fed out. And now it's like, hey, like, no, that is not the way it needs to be. Like you're not the shriveled up old hag. And yes, you should have a sex drive. And yes, sex should not be painful. And your bones are so important and your brains are important. So the messaging has changed vastly. However, the comfort level of physicians and the comfort level of females that grew up during that time, it's going to take them some time. And this is
Yeah.
where I'm going back to, like, they may not be comfortable now, but this is where I believe and Sarah believes our roles as coaches is to educate them where they're at and empower them that they can make some choices later on that may be appropriate with their provider. One thing I do think is important to say is that nothing, again, going back to that statement earlier, nothing is definite.
Yeah.
Nobody can say that every single female can have nor should have hormone therapy. However, even for females that are, have had breast cancer, does that mean that every female who has had breast cancer or has a BRCA mutation, does that mean that they cannot have hormone therapy? No, it doesn't. And so this is where it really is a nuanced conversation. It is not white nor black. And anybody who is um, out there in the world saying it is white or black, they're really misrepresenting and they could be doing more harm than good. I think the biggest overall message is that we do not need to fear hormones because with regards to that messaging, it is not that estrogen causes breast cancer. We know that. Like that's not the case. If that was the case, then why is breast cancer not rampant with women who are pregnant? Like
Right.
that is when their hormones are literally through the effing roof, right? So causation are not the same. And I just think it's important that everybody is when it comes down to the hormone therapy discussion, it's an individual nuanced discussion, and that's not something that I could ever say on a podcast that every female can have it, because again, with regards to some people's history, maybe they can't have it, or maybe they can't have some form of hormone therapy. Maybe perhaps I'll say, females that are undergoing active cancer treatment, there could be some females out there that actually can have a vaginal estrogen. Well, that's going to be incredibly beneficial with regards to her quality of life. So I think it's a nuanced conversation.
Yeah. And I love that you, number one, with your coaching, you said you and Sarah, you are the type of people that are meeting the client where they are at. I think that is so incredibly important. I had a coaching situation where I didn't feel I was really met where I was at. It was really a conversation of like, oh man, I have three. This was in 2019. I just graduated from college, right? Like I was probably in like the best shape of my life. I was also like what 21, right? That like young ass girl. And I would be like, "Oh, I'm having 3 coffees a day and poof, I am still tired." Yeah, I was also training like fucking crazy, probably not sleeping enough and all this sort of stuff. And the coach that I was working with was like immediately like red flag, red flag, red flag. We need to look at your hormones. And I didn't really have the like it was very intense and rushed and all of a sudden I felt like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just flinging my credit card all over the place. And that experience now it just like it put a really bad taste in my mouth to work with another coach and now I've been working with Kelsey for like over 2 years and she is the complete opposite. Where like I'm a coach that meets my clients where we're at. She's a coach that does that and I think it's awesome to just hear on like a higher level that like you are doing that. That is like a pillar of who you are. Um, and then to also not just be putting out blanket statements. I feel like a lot of people get up on a podcast and they make blanket statements, and it can be really damaging to those who listen. And so you're here just providing really incredible insight and women can walk away feeling really empowered because you're not just saying this is this 1 + 1 = 2. You're saying there's a lot of nuance to it and that can give women the confidence to be like, oh yeah, it's not just black and white, maybe things could look different for me in a lot of different capacities. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
Is
Definitely.
there a limit to like how old someone like you can keep using estrogen?
No.
No, interesting.
No, no, some physicians out there will say that they would die with their, estrogen patch. So I'm gonna say, so again, caveat, so I'm gonna say no, but I
Yeah,
also am not looking at that individual's person's health history. So if
of
something in
course.
their health history changes to which something is contraindicated or not in their overall best interest, could that change? Absolutely. But long as that would never happen, then no, the benefits as per most societies out there, including the American Heart Association, the benefits outweigh the risks.
Mm.
I had a oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that even comes to that quote cancer discussion is the benefits outweigh
Mm.
the risk because again of how estrogen and even progesterone, testosterone are all working with and modulating the immune system.
Mm.
I had a client like way back, like one of the very first clients, you get in the first couple years, and you're like, I can help everyone. One of
Yeah, I
those.
can save everybody.
Yes. But she was great, and I trained her in her house, and I remember her telling me how she was, I don't know if it was a patch, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but she was like, "Oh, I stopped taking my estrogen because my doctor told me, I think she was in her 60s. Like, I don't need it anymore. I'm in my 60s." And I just thought, "Oh, like what an interesting thought." And I've always pondered on that. I'm like, "Is there an age limit or we should just stop taking it?"
No, why would again the benefits outweigh the risks?
Yeah.
If you're still if you still have bone, you still have muscle, you're still a walking, breathing human being that has lungs and a brain, you have skin, like you are going
Mhm.
to benefit from having healthy hormones, all of them.
Do you think and I mean, this is something I just totally speculative, but do you think it comes from just like you're old enough, like you don't really need it, like again, kind of like the old hag sort of
Absolutely.
visualization?
Absolutely
Mhm.
agree with you. I do think that a lot of people believe in their heart of hearts that when you become, I mean, women dread being in perimenopause. They dread even saying that they are in perimenopause, let alone being in menopause, because that means
Yep.
again, you're washed up, you're not sexy anymore, you're not vibrant anymore. Even if you look at like programs that are geared towards targeting females that are perimenopause and menopause, what are they called? Vitality, the vitality program. Like
Yeah.
fuck, like
Mhm.
when did you lose that? And I think that, that's a message I'm like, guys, like you're not losing it. Like that is a mindset. But I
Mhm.
100% agree with you. It's, oh, you're not having, your hormones, you only need hormones for sex
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're old, you
libido.
don't need to be having sex and you shouldn't enjoy your life and
They're not looking
Mhm.
at like, again, like having hormones goes way beyond having a sex drive and libido. Like it
yeah.
affects your insulin sensitivity, it affects your cardiovascular system, it affects your blood vessels, it affects your eyes, like it affects all of these things. But by and large, most people think of hormonal health with regards to fertility
Yep.
or sex drive.
Yep.
Mhm.
By God, if you can get through sex and you don't want children, well, then you're okay. Well, like, I'm sorry, like, your
Mhm.
health and your hormones go way beyond a fucking, sex drive, libido, and including fertility.
Mm. Yeah.
Mhm. It kind of like makes me connect more dots because it's very easy where people are like, oh, when you get older, it's all downhill from here. And then from one side, you can say, well, yeah, it's downhill for you because you've been treating your body like trash, right, for years. Unlike, our generation where we are doing things proactively from a young age. But then I also think about, okay, a lot of those women probably aren't even supplementing with hormone replacement therapy. So, of course, things are starting to fall apart. It's all connected.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you on that. I do think that anything we put on our body is a choice. Number one, I should even say that when I say put in our body, like hormones are a natural thing, like we produce those.
Yeah.
So a lot of people look at hormones as like this extra thing. I want to be natural, and I'm like, oh, you realize that like they are natural, and like you do produce them.
Yep.
But I 100% agree that, a lot of people, they could lose their vitality. And we are conditioned to seeing that type of aging. And I do not believe that beginning hormone therapy is a way to say reverse aging, like with regards to like that biological age, but it can, and I do think it can help, but it's not going to outdo the other things that are involved in it. Like you can't just take hormone therapy and think that you're going to lose weight. Like I've had so many people come to me and think that, oh, I'm going to start hormone therapy and I'm going to have a body of a 20-year-old. And I'm like, you realize it's not a fat loss thing, right? Um,
Right.
they think that if they start hormone therapy that, they're automatically going to get healthier. I'm like, no, like you still need to walk daily. You need to drink your water. You need to have a basic concept around what good nutrition is, stress management tools. You need to strength train. You can put hormone therapy in a body that does not strength train and is not going to have the same benefits with regards to muscle mass and osteoporosis prevention as somebody who does strength train, right? There is no one-stop shop. There is no easy pill. And I think that some people think that it might be like an easy pill, or injection or patch, but it's not. You really have to do all the things. And I'd
Mhm.
also say like why wouldn't you want to? Like, you're worth it. Like, and it's not that doing these things, you can guarantee that something tragic doesn't happen. But by God, you can put your
Mhm.
best foot forward and ensure that if something tragic would happen, your body is going to be in the best position to handle that. Like I'd like to say that when I went into, a surgical menopause, I can truthfully say I was in a better position than the vast majority of individuals.
Mhm.
And I at least had the education post surgery to continue understanding the changes that were actually happening to my body and see that domino effect that I alluded to earlier that does happen to many women that go into even a natural menopause.
Yeah, I
Mm.
like the the call out that just because you do something like you take some sort of medication or you take hormones, you do this one thing that everything is all of a sudden to be better. You're going to drop 20 pounds. You're going to have energy. Your skin's going to look great. You're going to feel like 20 years old again. And it is just like that's the world that we live in right now, very much like that Amazon Prime culture where you take something and it's like, bam, I'm expecting the results like yesterday. And it made me think of I was watching it was Real Housewives of New Jersey, and it was like years ago. And there was this woman who she was getting like hormone like pellets in her butt. And she was kind of like, I'm feeling amazing. I have all this energy, blah, 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 blah. But then it's like you go on to like be drinking 8 million times a week and,
Yeah.
maybe not moving your body as much, whatever. Like it's a TV show. We don't really see what happens, but it is just kind of pushes that idea to the viewer. Oh, she's trying hormone therapy and she's feeling great. She's looking young. Maybe I could do that. And it's like, same with like the Ozempic, craze. Like a lot of people, they do need the medication, but then I know a handful of people that are on some weight loss medication and they're not doing anything. Like they're like this big, not to, call it out, but like the skin doesn't look great. There's no muscle tone. They feel weak. They're freezing all the time. And it's like, just because you take something doesn't mean you get to opt out of everything else. If you want to, again, like you said, put your best foot forward, live your best life, feel the best that you can, because again, like I don't like to think in like I think I'm very a realist. Like if something is going to happen, because it probably will at one point in time, depends on what it could be. You want to be in the best shape possible. You want to be in the best position you can be to handle and recover. And it's just, oh man, this again, such a such a good conversation that could go 8 million different ways right here.
And that's where we come in as coaches and
Yeah.
as mentors is making sure that, I talk to, my mentees and I tell them like, our job is never to save. We
Yep.
are not saviors. Our job is not to convince, but our job is to educate and it is to empower our clients. We want them to be able to be autonomous and make educated choices. I think a lot of coaches, it is hard to turn that off and
Mhm.
realize that we can present information and we can have in our idea the decision that we feel like it should be made, but that's
Hmm.
that's not our job. That's not for us.
Yeah.
Our job is to have our hand on their back when they need a push. Our job is to perhaps yank them up, maybe give them a kick in the butt. Like our job is to provide them the tools and nurture them with the information and the experiences that we have had. um, I mean, I think that that's what's really important. But ultimately, it's like you said, like you will always have somebody out there that does something or makes a choice and wants it to be the easy pill, but that or easy
Hmm.
injection. But that doesn't mean that number one, like Ozempic is a bad thing. It doesn't mean that it does bad things to people. But we do see that there is lazy people out there. And I said it, like it is true in every
Yep.
field, every culture that just simply wants to do the bare minimum and do like a pill for an ill type of situation.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
What do you think are the best things that women can do to not prevent, but to minimize perimenopause symptoms? Like, what things have you done? What things do your clients do?
Yeah. So I think that, taking a full body approach, one, the free shit that we talked about that nobody wants to do, nobody wants to take the time to do, but really locking in on the free things. So ensuring that you are hydrating your body, you are prioritizing a sleep schedule, getting sleep and having a sleep schedule, very different things. I think we all have been somewhere in our life where we're like, yeah, I got 7 hours of sleep, but it's like all over the effing place. Um, trying to do, again, and depending on where you are at life, I mean, if you are breastfeeding at home, I mean, like do the best you can. But for women who are in perimenopause, I'm going to say baseline, start doing the free stuff. When any clients come work with us, I'm very adamant that before we do any blood work, again, I should say like the majority, before we are suggesting blood work or tests, like we have to be doing the free things because the free things are going to be the first thing that we have to ensure are shored up for the outcome of any type of testing. So by God, I want to make sure we have those, or at least are on the road to having those, depending. The next thing I'm going to say outside of all the free things, so all those pillars, is going to be getting some comprehensive lab work. I said it, I stand by it. It is very important to look at what's going on under the hood. You can, I'm going to say arguably, somebody could feel good, but they could also be very insulin resistant and haven't, be almost pre-diabetic. So they feel
Mhm.
good. However, they're now running the risk of being pre-diabetic, leading to possible diabetes, which then puts them at risk for cardiovascular disease. Like these are things that you don't know until you know. Now, again, going back to those foundations are pivotal. You want to have those literally fortified, and then going in and getting some blood work done, looking under the hood, looking at your history. Have you had a mammogram? Have you had, are you due for a colonoscopy? Like, any of these exams, that when or the last time you had them, like do your due diligence. When have you had a vaginal ultrasound? Like making sure that you are up to snuff on all your female healthcare needs. I think that those are big things. One other thing that I would say would be watch the alcohol.
Yep.
I know that alcohol is a part of a lot of people's lives, but I can truthfully tell you and everybody, it does not benefit our body in any way. Like, and if we're gonna get on the argument as far as like having antioxidants, like, girl, like, don't even come at me trying to tell me that, your mojito was, had antioxidants in it. Like, no, 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 no. But really watch the alcohol consumption. At this time, for a female in perimenopause, we have to understand and look at what's going on in their life. They're at the peak of their careers. They're trying to push their careers. They're trying to, excel their careers. They're also either trying to grow their family. They could be having kids that are going to college. They could be having kids that are still, doing all the different camps and running them around while they're nurturing a marriage, nurturing a relationship. They could be dealing with divorce. They could also be dealing with aging parents or aging family members. They are wearing so many effing hats, and putting their oxygen mask on first is very unlikely. In fact, it can come across as being selfish because the women right now who are in perimenopause now, they got their idea of what their role is as caregivers, as pleasers from their mothers. And their mothers
Yep.
are from the generation that were taught, again, that we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about menstrual cramps, we don't talk about any of those things. So we have to understand the demographic of the client so they can really support them. But those would be my base things for somebody who's in perimenopause: is start handling the foundations as best you can, get some comprehensive blood work, and start really looking at your coping mechanisms with regards to alcohol, perhaps if you're using THC or whatever else, and start asking yourselves, what are you trying to cope from?
Yep.
Oof,
Yeah.
that hit
That's
that was
yeah. That visualized in my head a lot of people that
Mhm.
I know. And it also is such good information, and like you provide an easy door for people to enter, right? Because if we look at like the hierarchy of what you need, like the base is like I like how you call it the free shit. I am stealing that. I think that's an awesome thing, but it's true. Like go for a walk, drink your water. Like I can't tell you how many times we have conversations with clients and it's like, I've had like 4 cups of coffee today. And I'm like, well, where's the water bottle on your desk? And then, oh, I forgot it. I'm like, all right, well, let's before we can fucking run this mountain, we gotta like crawl, baby. We gotta crawl. So I love the way that you presented it, and like you validate a lot of the experience of these women, right? Like you said, they're at the height of the career, trying to, rebuild that relationship in their marriage when kids go off to college or going through divorces. Like those play massive roles. And again, like doing hormone replacement therapy is not going to solve the problems if you have this chronic stress all over here.
Yeah. And what's interesting is they're doing all those things while their hormones are essentially fluctuating drastically. And it's
Yeah.
not month to month. This is, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months
Hmm.
spans. And this is where I believe in my heart of hearts that having those foundations, those pillars, the free shit, those are the things you can fall back on. Those are the things that are going to hold you up. And when the shit is hitting the fan, when you are drinking life through a fire hose, by God, go back and you can say, did I meet my water today? I don't care
Hmm.
if it's the one fucking box you can tick. You can tick that box, and then it's not you must ask yourself, what can I do next? Because again,
Mm.
you cannot stay in that place. You cannot stay in emergency mode. With females with hormone therapy and perimenopause, is this something that can actually help them during this time? Absolutely. Do they need to wait until they're in menopause to start hormone therapy? Absolutely not. In fact, a woman
Mhm.
who is perhaps having trouble sleeping because her progesterone is leaving the picture, her estrogen is doing these wild fluctuations, can starting some sort of hormone therapy help with coping? Absolutely. Because most women in perimenopause, are they even talked to about their hormones? No, they're handed gabapentin, they're handed, trazodone to help them sleep, they're handed Xanax, but they're not actually being asked about how, what's happening with your menstrual cycle? Are you having one on a regular basis? Have you, how are your cramps? How are your PMS? Yes, hormones fluctuate. I get that. We all get that. That argument needs to wash under the rug. And that is not a reason why you're not should not be checking your hormones and start gaining some insights. And yes, will you need to do more than one set of lab work? Absolutely. This is
Mhm.
your life you are talking about.
Mm.
This is your quality of life. This is your quality of life going forward. Are you seeking disease? Absolutely not. You are just simply trying to maximize your health and the quality of said life on this earth. And I think once you have these, you're like, you know what? I'm handling this. But you know what? My sleep still sucks, and I'm still wanting to kill my, teenage daughter. I'm having trouble. One day I want to kill my husband, the next day I think he's, the sexiest man on this earth. Or you're like, I never want to see him again. Like,
Yep.
start looking at this and then start looking at what is changing in your body. And maybe perhaps during this time, might you want to consider start having a dialogue with regards to hormone therapy and how those things can play a role? Yeah. And might it be able to save you the Xanax and the Trazodone? Maybe.
That was
Yeah, that
powerful.
was I was gonna say that was powerful, and I think it goes back to what you said is the women who are in perimenopause, like literally right now, January 3rd, you know, a lot of that age and that era of people, it's very much like, oh, you get older, things slow down. Oh, we get older, we get this. Oh, and I firmly believe, as someone who could not walk at the age of 21, like I never want to go back to that. Like I want to be as like I'm getting a full new thing of lab work next week. Like I'm like, I'm 28. I'm like, let me see what's going on, like all the time. Because I've
Yeah.
experienced that and I don't want to accept that. But I think a lot of the women now are fine with accepting that because they were shown it was fine and it was normal to get, to gain weight, to be tired, to hate your marriage, to all these things. But I
Mhm.
think our generation now, like, I mean, personally, I don't accept that. Like, I'm going to keep going forward and have the best life quality as possible. But I think I mean, I could tell from you for how passionate you are talking about that. I'm sure you've met opposition from women that are like, it's fine, I don't need it. And you're like, it could be so much better, but they don't want to accept that yet. And I'm sure that's hard to accept yourself.
Yeah, I think that, for myself, I don't think it's as hard for me to accept anymore, because I'm very open with them. Like I'm like, hey, like
Mhm.
you may not be ready for this. I was like, but let's open up the dialogue so you can start learning about it. So you can start being familiar and start, maybe perhaps opening your ear when you see like all the zillion things on Instagram. Start asking me questions. And I think that is what I want the most for my clients is them to say, hey, like I saw this, what's the
Mm.
validity of it? Or does this apply to me? And oh shit, like I heard you talking about like, these symptoms of perimenopause and I might have that. Like I think and I'll be like, girl, guess what? It's not it's not a disease. And you are gonna have it. Like it's like inevitable. At least
Yeah, it's at some point.
yeah, unless you're listening to this podcast in 20 years, then by all means, there could be something else. But at this point in life, you are going to go through this time period. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that getting them curious and not fearful is really important, but also empathizing that not everybody's journey is sunshines and rainbows. Some women have, absolutely horrible perimenopause time period, and it's not just linear to, oh, perimenopause is causing this. It's all the other things that are happening with regards to their body. Like, you mentioned like the immune system and things that were going on with you. Like we can talk about like gut dysbiosis, parasites. Like, I mean, there's just so many things. And I think just educating our clients and educating other people is where it's at, not
Mhm.
fear-based.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yep.
God, I have so many more questions and things, but we'll definitely have to do a part two, three, four, and cover more of these things. But before we close, you don't have to go away as soon as we end this. We always kind of chit chat for a minute after. But where can our listeners find you? What services or coaching programs do you have going on right now?
Yeah, so our website is www.fortify-health.com. We have so many free resources. And I say resources, and that's actually divided into two. So we actually have free resources, but we do also have so many blogs with regards to tracking anything from your BBT, how that's applicable for fertility versus, contraception. We have so many resources there, and they're, not to plug, but there's going to be some other additions coming soon. So, keep that. So www.fortify-health.com. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, which is a weekly thing. We do not spam you. We just simply want to say, hey, like this is some really cool shit that we're doing. Here's some really cool information. Here's some cool questions. That's really all we do with our newsletters. Except for like Christmas and the holidays, we do disclose some very secret family recipes. But anyway,
We'll put the link in the show notes too, so don't worry.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
on Instagram, I'm Mere, Mere, Paci, Paci. And our Instagram is Fortify-Health on Instagram. And my email is meredith@fortify-health.com. You can also contact me on the website.
Perfect. We'll put everything in the show notes so that you guys can just scroll down and click. But this was a really incredible conversation. And like Maddie said, we do this with the people we love talking to. Like we're gonna need another conversation because like you said, we're easy to talk to, you are easy to talk to, and you are just a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your experience and your brain with us.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my pleasure. I rambled enough. I would just say it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you. And I look forward to hopefully doing this again with you guys.
Yes. Okay. Bye.
Thank you guys so much for listening or watching to Kinda Hot, Kinda Healthy. Please make sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, share this with your perimenopause girlfriend. You know they need to hear this. Share it with your mom. Share this with everyone you know. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere where you stream podcasts. If you have a burning question about life, friendship, health, and also another question about perimenopause or anything we talked about, email us at kindahotpod@gmail.com. That's KINDAHOTPOD@gmail.com. Bye.
Bye.